All right, for those who are joining us, welcome to Casual Chat with Brian Germain and our special guest, Jay Moledzki. I've got a ton of great questions for you, but before we get started with question and answer and picking your brain and getting your opinions about stuff, how you doing?
I'm good. Yeah.
What's new? What have you been up to lately?
Just got back from a day of hiking. Legs are nice and sore. Keeping myself pretty busy. Got lots of stuff on the go right now. Yeah. Generally, life's pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah, hiking is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
It's part of my soul. It's my grounding practice. Above just about anything else, it keeps my brain working right,
For sure. Yeah.
And the body, that helps too. Yeah. And for me, with kids, hiking with kids is like this whole other layer of adrenaline. That's a cliff, don't run towards the cliff. And you just kind of have to work with that and trust them to a certain extent,
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so there's the biggest thing that I want to make sure that we get to talk about is parachute flight. And on one hand, there's the discussion of how do you do it better? How do we each sort of nurture our inner canopy pilot and be better than we've been? And the other part is, how do we teach it better? How do we nurture better teachers to, help protect the planet from further impact events?
Yeah.
So I guess you can take that and run wherever you want to, but that's
it's interesting. I actually like when you and I start onto this topic, it's a pretty unique exchange because we both dedicated a large portion of our lives towards learning to understand the topic and personally gaining a comprehension of flight through that means, as well as hands-on in the design and testing and, the really like getting our mind around the parachute as a whole, but also in the sense that we've become educators and we've become the people that are out there actively, working with our family or inside of our culture to educate our population of skydivers, of canopy pilots, of parachutists. And I'm actually trying not to say skydivers anymore because it's not really accurate. We are pilots, we're nylon pilots, we're unpowered wings, but we're definitely pilots. And the more that I teach, which has been more and more and more the last few years, the more that I realize the term skydivers was accurate way back when. But now it needs to really be refocused to thinking of it as piloting and approaching it from the mindset of aviation.
I couldn't agree more. And I would say that even further back, when I started, it was 1986. I was on a round parachute. I was less a pilot under canopy than I was in free fall.
Totally. Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
And so we have to respect the fact that even if you're not on a wingsuit, you're still a pilot. When you jump out of the airplane, you still have the ability to screw up your spot, and land off the drop zone where your canopy piloting skills don't save you, or burn a hole through somebody else's parachute.
Yeah.
So that's piloting too, to me.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you're airborne and you're the pilot in command, there's nobody else driving the ship, then it's you as the pilot in command.
Buck stops with me.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Along those lines, the self-responsibility, right? To not feel like a victim, to feel like you are in the driver's seat in every way. I think that there's an inherent thing that occurred when we added AFF. I noticed that we put so much of our faith in the instructors, and they are more qualified than the people that taught the static line courses when I was doing it, at least in free fall. But I think we put a little too much faith in the pilot to give us a good spot, in the rigger to set up our gear right, the packer to untwist our brake lines and stow our toggles and undo our sliders, I think that as a sport, we could invest a little bit more in that idea, right?
You know, I would have to totally agree. I came from the static line progression as well. I didn't do an accelerated free fall program. I did the graduated free fall program where you start off doing training ripcord pulls and then progress to 5-second free falls, 10-second free fall, 20, 30, 40. And so, I mean, it was almost 20 jumps before I got to 10,000 feet. You know, they start off at 2,000, 3,000 and gradually worked up and up. And I really feel that I gained a lot from that process. The fact that it was graduated rather than accelerated to me makes a lot more sense when we're talking about the mental stress that's associated with the concept of skydiving, just aviating in general. I mean, whenever I'm flying in a plane and I'm in the co-pilot seat, I'm not the pilot in command. You know, I'm in the co-pilot seat. I'm with a friend. They're the pilot. I have no responsibility here. It's their plane. They took me for a flight and they're like, yeah, you want to fly? And I'm like, as much as me says yes, part of me says no, because I'm a little undereducated and kind of scared, but how hard can it be? I mean, left, right, up, down, right? Like figure it out. And even then I'm okay when I'm up high, but as soon as I start getting near the ground, I mean, I've got 14,000 parachute flights. I should know how to do this, right? It's a plane, it's a parachute, whatever. They're not that different. But I start getting tense, you know, and I start getting a little scared and I start freaking out a bit. And then they're like, no, you're doing good. And I'm like, yeah, you tell me to do it good, but inside I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
And
I think it's great that you're sharing that aspect of it, because I get the same way when I'm like, you know, right seat in the otter and the pilot says, here, you want to fly it? I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I can fly. I've owned my own airplanes and stuff, but this is a big piece of metal.
Yeah.
There's people on the back.
Yeah, there's people back there
that I'm responsible for. And so, yeah, the adrenaline starts to kick in, and that battle suddenly is more alive than it was for me in circumstances like flying my parachute, a canopy that I know, over a drop zone that I know, where I'm fully in my own shoes, and it's kind of easy, and I don't get provoked unless something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting a little bit of insight, a little bit of compassion in what, you know, somebody with 20 jumps that just got their, you know, they just downsized a little bit and they're scared, and wait, this must be what they feel like, you know? And,
you know, I've been working with a lot of 20 jump number students lately. I just had a class this past weekend where 3 of 4 students in the class were between 20 and 30 jumps. And literally they're fresh off AFF. You know, they've just done their AFF. They barely have any license, if they've got any license at that point. And the words out of their mouth are, no, I don't feel like I'm in control. No, I don't feel like I've got it. No, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, and I see it, you know, I mean, I can see the tension and I understand it. You know, I don't feel like we're really taking care of the needs of the beginning jumper the way things currently stand. I think we'd be best to restructure the way we're looking at it and maybe remove the accelerated portion and look at like a more elongated training program.
Yeah, smaller chunks.
Yeah,
smaller chunks.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, so what do you do? I mean, I've got my own perspective and my own game plan when somebody is obviously nervous. You look in their eyes as you're just talking to them about skydiving. Yeah. They're not in the sky yet, and yet you can see their eyes are like this and they're nervous, and you know that they're going to create negative experiences if they keep this vibe. So what are some of your go-to, you know, kind of secrets?
Well, you know, I think that's kind of it's a bit of a tricky one to say for like a generalization, because each person is individual. You know, what I try to do when I'm in the mentor or coach role with somebody that's obviously scared is kind of get some eye contact first of all, and make it personal. Like really like, hey, right now it's just you and me. Let's just talk for a second before it becomes any more than this. Yes. And let's bring it back down a few notches, because usually it's escalating, you know, inside their mind. There's a circumstance that's starting to develop into something that actually doesn't exist. It's a created reality. And this is skydiving or not skydiving. This is how we live our lives in general. We make things into much bigger circumstances than they are most of the time.
Sure.
And I try to just kind of check in with them and add some humor, be a little more real, like kind of bring it back to the core elements, or remind them, like, what are we doing right now? What are we going to be doing in a few minutes afterwards? How are we going to deal with it? And break it into small chunks, like you said. Like, I'm a big fan of baby steps, small goals. Every time something gets challenging, every time I start feeling more and more daunted by the end and thinking about how far it is between me and what I'm trying to accomplish and how big of a gap that is I have to try and jump over, I start thinking, well, wait a second, let's just think about the very next second between now and then. Let's just break this down into this moment, right in this second, what needs to happen. I only need to take one more step, and 10 more of those will add up to another and 100 of those. And before I start thinking about 100, let's go back to this one again. Let's think right now,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, to get a tangible grip on one's power, to me, that's the opponent force to fear. Ultimately, is to feel empowered is a process of sobering up to the reality and noticing, what do I actually have to do to create safety? What are those individual, what handles do I need to check? Is there anything else on this list that I haven't satisfied? And then what? Because there's always, so I go down the logical process, I plan my jump, I visualize my plan, I get into the mood that allows me to bring the skill out, which is a whole, that's a several sequel conversation.
Yeah.
Right. That's huge, isn't it?
I think that's a big piece of it, like the visualization, regardless of what it is you're doing. And I guess this is something that I've noticed from the years of being friends with you and observing your approach to things is, it's skydiving, it's not skydiving, it's the same thing. It's about how we're feeling. It's about how we're preparing ourselves. And the visualization piece of it, the dry run, the mental rehearsal, the like, okay, where am I right now? How do I feel right now? And what's going to be happening when I close my eyes and I take away all this distracted thoughts and I just walk through the steps? That's one of the things I've learned through my competition experience has been the visualization piece is huge to creating the future that you're planning for yourself. You think it up. You're like, this is what I want it to be. And you go, okay, let's rehearse this. It's going to be exactly like this. It's going to be exactly like this, just like this, just like this. Okay, now let's just do it just like that.
Yeah. And for me, there's the visualization of the mechanics of the event, the visual experience, right? Maybe even the physiological experience of I'm starting my turn. What is it going to feel like in my body? Where am I going to be looking? All that. And for me, there's a whole other aspect that I try to include with my visualizations is, how do I want to feel?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? What's the emotional component?
Yeah. I always include breathing in whatever process I'm planning.
Yep.
And this is, again, skydiving, not skydiving, doesn't matter.
Yep.
It's as you go through the steps, it's step A, step B, step C. Breathe in, breathe out, feel calmness, smile, step A, step B, step C, carry on the process. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The breathing is very, very crucial, isn't it? I notice that when I'm in a state where it's kind of edgy and it's a balancing act between, the perceived ability and perceived risk, where it can go, to this place where I feel like I don't have enough skill for this specific situation. Maybe I don't have the weather components, I don't have the gear that I would like to in some way. And so I feel myself provoked. The breathing is my way of softening the intensity of that. And I don't always remember to do it when it's most crucial. And I think that needs to be like tattooed on people's forearms, written on their goggles in some sort of a heads-up display that projects it, 3 feet in front of every skydiver. Breathe bigger and slower, because they're breathing, but let's be more specific, bigger and slower, right?
Yeah. I always include it in a mantra for myself. Whenever I'm practicing anything, I have my steps, and included in that is the breath in, the breath out, and I'll choose different paces for the type of breath dependent upon the situation.
Sure.
I found through practice that sometimes using a long, slow, deep breath is appropriate, and other times a more rapid kind of puffing, short breath, it might be the more appropriate breath for that time in order to keep my mind at whatever level, or to be resetting the level appropriately. Sometimes I want to be calming, and other times I want to be engaging, and whichever one is the one I need or best served by at that time is the one I'm going to lean to.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So you're putting on your wingsuit, and you're zipping up in your chest strap, and you're
exhales. Yeah.
Right? The little fine details. And for me, it's like performing a mass. It's this process of doing it right because you're doing it slowly enough to have full awareness. And the breath for me then is this big, long, circular, slow process. But there's this whole other, I agree that when you're actually flying, it may not be appropriate to be in total, extreme. You're not in the ashram, you're in a different place.
Very much so. I mean, for me, the base jumping environment is a very powerful learning space. It's one of the things that has given me a lot more posture, a lot more patience, a lot more awareness. Skydiving was a great doorway, but the hallway really was base jumping for me when it came to the journey, and you mentioned the wingsuit zip up, and I immediately in my head, I'm like, I go back to these moments where I'm standing on an exit point and close as I'm zipping those zippers down, body temperature is rising.
Yeah.
Because of the spike in heart rate, and the mental awareness of that is keep the heart rate down, stay cool, stay calm, breathe, stay focused. Just make sure I'm paying attention to the pieces that need attention and not focusing on anything overly. Just keeping a nice awareness of everything in a general sense, and the breaths stay very calming. And then as the exit's about to happen, the breaths actually pick up pace and start to become a little bit more focused and have a little more of a poof to them, and as the countdown happens, it's more like cadence breath, poof, 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 and it follows that through the exhale during the launch in order to be relaxed during the launch, and that's carried over into every other aspect in life, whether it's performing, playing music, or whether it's riding a motorcycle, or engaging in a highly emotional conversation with a loved one, where you feel your energy just like, there's this like, wait.
Yeah.
Calm back down again. Let's keep this cool. Let's stay focused on what do I need to keep my attention on right now? What's actually happening?
Yeah. Yeah. There's to me, it's sort of an oscillation between focused states, which are to me a little bit more static, or striving for a static experience of calming. And then there's a flow experience, which has a faster flow and a slower flow, and it changes speed, but it's dynamic, right? It requires this moment-to-moment awareness because novelty is coming in, isn't it? Right? That you have to adapt to. You have to be ready for surprise, by the way,
That's the fun stuff, though. I mean, it's when we're in that state of change, that's the state, right? I mean, it's easy when you're in flow, you're aware that everything is in a constant state of flux. And I find that that's probably easier to adapt to, for me at least, than to be in more of the rested state where there's less change, things seem more static, or the pace of change is much slower, so it's not necessarily as perceivable. I'm a big fan of, as anybody knows me, I'm a big fan of speed. There's nothing that has engaged me more through the entire duration of my life than the pursuit of just pure speed. Just how fast can I go under this wing, or with that wing, or with my body, or with this machine, or poof, you know, the faster it goes, the quieter it gets. Everything slows down in my mind. It's just I'm in a very peaceful place there.
Yep.
And that's easy, right? It's when everything's going super slow that my mind's still going 1,000 miles an hour relative to the pace of everything around me that I feel like it's harder to be relaxed, harder to be patient.
Yeah. Well, of course, to me, it is preparation. You know, so when you sit down deliberately to listen,
That's pleasant.
yeah, right, to listen and be present, we discover that we were pretty busy on the inside the whole time. And it was only in these moments where we had absolute need to be focused to these flowing moments that the mind finally quieted down. But I believe that we are served by taking the time to make that a part of our life, a part of our training, so that the mind can be more clear in these moments leading up, so that it's not projecting as much and it's receiving reality as it is. That's my belief, that it's training.
Yeah. I think all the practices that we find for ourselves that allow us the ability to turn our awareness inward, you know, where we become less observant of our surroundings, less observant of our surrounding energies, beings, you know, circumstance, anything that, you know, the time of day, the place, the temperature, and we become more, how am I putting outwards right now? What am I making myself feel? You know, how am I creating reality for myself to live in? And they're just excellent, you know. The flight has been an incredible teacher for that, along with yoga, meditation, moving meditations, like we were saying, like hiking, fantastic. I mean, like, start becoming self-aware through those moving meditations.
Yeah, exactly. That's I think it's important to make that assertion that meditation doesn't have to just be sitting on your bottom and breathing. There's other forms of it. And that's the ground of my practice. It still is sitting on my butt, the most, you know, boring sport in the world that makes all the other sports work better.
Yeah.
But what about, you know, pedaling your bike? You know, what about walking in the woods where you're totally tuned into nature?
Yeah, they're equal value.
Yeah. Laura's about to go paddle some more. It's one of our favorite hobbies. She's going to go do the Grand Canyon for 2 weeks.
Awesome.
2 weeks of Zen and rocks. It's a good place to be. I wish I was going, but you know.
I'm jealous. Yeah.
Well, I too, big time. But I'm going to watch the kids, and she deserves it. You know, she's been a mom, you know, for a long time. So I was thinking we can go to some of the viewer questions that we've got. There's some good ones that have come in.
Let's do it.
So the first one, actually, there's 4 great questions from one person. So I'll start with this first one. Is how do I forget past failures and accidents and motivate myself to try again and push forward, go beyond what I have ever accomplished before?
Well, I think that I think it's important not to forget, actually, and to take every lesson that comes to you for equal value. There's no great there. Let me see how I want to say that. In some ways, all lessons are mistakes until it becomes, you know, the one potential it's not. So they're not to be forgotten. They're to be added to your pile. The accumulation of mistakes is what builds experience. Experience is what builds wisdom. You know, you don't just go to being an achiever or being highly experienced or being an expert at something without having built that background, that foundation on something. I just recently read a quote that said, an expert is somebody who has made all possible mistakes within their field. Take your mistakes as values.
Yeah.
Let's go make some more, actually. Let's make some today.
Yeah. Yeah. When you remove ego and its favorite thing, shame, right? When you pull shame out of it and sort of the self-aggression, and you just say, no, this is all just learning. I'm just figuring my way out here, and my past doesn't limit me. In fact, it empowers me.
Definitely, it's how we build. Yeah.
As I talk to people, and I'm sure you do this too, where they're maybe stuck in a rut with their landings, right? You know this one. And it's not always somebody with 50 jumps. Sometimes it's people that have thousands of jumps, and they just don't flare very effectively, at least for the canopy that they've got. And they really have swallowed this pill that they suck. They actually have convinced themselves based on these data points.
Sure, yeah.
That they're stuck on it, and they've got their past and their future, if you will. Yeah.
You know what I try to do is I just remind people, I'm like, whenever people walk in the classroom, they often think that the reason that they're there is to become a better pilot. They arrive and they go, okay, I'm going to get better throughout the day. I'm like, no, that's exactly the wrong thing. Today, what's going to happen is you're going to get in here and you're going to go worse. And what I want you to do is make mistakes that you make normally, because that's where we're going to start with, make your regular mistakes. And now we're going to make more mistakes. And hopefully they're not the ones that you usually make. Hopefully they're ones that you don't usually make. And you're going to go, what the hell? I'm terrible. I can't do this at all. I'm making all these mistakes. And I'm like, perfect, because that's what we came here to do. We came here to make mistakes, learn from them, evaluate why we're making them, and use them to help guide us to middle. We'll go too much that way, too much that way, too much to the left, too much to the left. Wait, let's go to the right. Whoa, way too much right. Let's go back to the middle. No, we missed it. We did a little bit. Okay, well, wait. We start to find our way back to center.
Totally.
Yeah.
Learning head down. Yeah. And it seems that there is, in the way, if you could think of habit as metal, that we have this solid thing based on history, based on expectation, belief, that is hard to mobilize. And yet when you start to add consciousness and the heat of awareness, it becomes pliable. You're able to change things in this uncomfortable place of novel expression, novel exploration of new possibilities. And that's when the change happens, but it's not comfortable when it's happening.
Yeah.
But you got to go there. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with the same old. And in an environment as fluid and as complex as parachute flight, seems to me that you have to keep expanding, because you're going to be handed a situation that you didn't expect, and you're going to have to be adaptable. You're going to have deep understanding and deep skills to solve it.
Absolutely. I try to encourage people. I'm like, let's make some mistakes. Let's just not make them life altering.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And self-definition altering, other than just to say, hey, look at this, I'm expanding. This is great.
Agreed.
We're moving it. Yeah. Cool. Nice. Good. So next question, I think, is also a good one, is how do I stop comparing myself with other people? Right. That's a great one. The top competitors in my class, for instance, or people at my level that are progressing faster than me in his perception, of course, right? Yep. And still have the required amount of drive to become the best. Interesting wording.
Say the last sentence there again.
Well, he's saying, how does he stop comparing himself to other people so that he, in a way that he doesn't undermine his drive to become better, to become the best?
Yeah, it's interesting. I spent the better part of my adult life as a competitor, and it wasn't necessarily something I enjoyed, ironically, which is kind of weird that you would go do things that you love but don't necessarily like. And the value that I gained from that during that time, like I started off with thinking, I was that guy that thought I was going to be first place showing up the first time, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Boom, I'm going to win. Yeah, no, not even close. Yeah, more like 25th place out of 25 people. Yeah. And So I'd be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I screwed it up the first time, but next time I'll definitely be first the next time, you know? And so then boom, 23rd out of 25 people. I'm like, oh, yeah, slightly better than I was the last time, but now I'm still way back here. And then what I'm relating myself to is my goal rather than where I currently stand, which is two completely different things. And it's again to the same topic. Like, you know, I can say, yeah, that's where I'm trying to be. But if I relate the end goal to the current state, then I'm not accurately measuring the circumstance. And, you know, you can put whoever's in first as the end goal and say, oh, I'm trying to beat that person. But the reality is that you're trying to beat yourself. You're trying to surpass your current skill set. So one of the things I love to do with, you know, up and coming competitive students is say, okay, let's go see what your averages are. Let's go do a few runs and we'll measure them and record them. And we'll know how good of a pilot you currently are according to the definition by the rules, which is whatever somebody wrote them. And so, you know, we do a few runs and we're like, all right, well, that's a pretty average. You know, there's a couple more. Well, those were kind of bad. And okay, well, those were kind of good. So that puts you slightly below average. You know, and they go, what? You know, I'm like, well, what did you think? You know, like if you were thinking something else, it was probably wrong, because otherwise you wouldn't be getting coaching. You'd be showing other competitors how to do it.
Yeah, I think that this is a huge topic, because you have this drive, you and lots of other people. I've gone through big phases of my life where I was wanting to win, but I realized at some point that it's not about comparing yourself to anybody else. It's about enjoying progress in every form. And sometimes it's not even a measurable thing, as I felt better as I did it. You know, as I measurably, okay, my swoop wasn't as far, or whatever. My cartwheel back to Spock wasn't as tight as last time, but I had more awareness of something I didn't have before, which is going to lead me to a different blossoming in a different regard that I think ultimately is going to feed me, right?
You know, I think like what people don't realize when they engage competition is self-exploration.
Yeah.
What you're truly doing when you put yourself into a competitive environment is putting yourself up for measure by a given set of standards. And you're never truly competing against anybody else except for yourself, because you're the only person who's going to surpass or fail based on your expectation.
Yeah.
And everybody else is doing the same thing. We're all in the same boat together. We show up and like, all right, we're all here, you know, 10 of us, 100 of us, and we're all going to give everything we believe we have. And each of us believe that everything we have is going to equal 100. And the fact is that, you know, 100 of us are going to give 100%, and one of those people that's going to equal 100, and one of those people that's going to equal 99, you know, and it's all, you know, whatever perception we may think we have is not necessarily the reality of how it may be. And the fact is, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, you know, like none of that actually determines what kind of a person you are, who you are, how you treat other people. The way that you interact with the people around you is the relevant part of this. The way that you measure yourself during a performance is, this is a time filler. This is a pastime. This is a way to, you know, give yourself a process to engage in while developing self. You know?
Yes. Yeah, I what I was hearing as you were saying that is there's this whole other component where people seem to starve themselves of self-love in order to pull themselves forward into motivation, as distinct to me from inspiration, which has self-love the whole time, right? It's the carrot or the whip from behind, and I choose the carrot. I choose to continue with whatever it is that I'm doing, to have fun anyway, to laugh about my mistakes, to roll it off in one way or another. But I noticed that a lot of folks really are beating the crap out of themselves, thinking that that's the answer, that's going to be the motivation. And if they turn their self-love on the whole time, they're going to lose some essential fire to drive them forward.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance, you know. I mean, you can walk in the room, you know, overdoing the self-love with and become what becomes ego, and saying, man, I'm the best, I'm amazing at this. You all better back up because watch out. I'm going to, and
that's, is that self-love. Yeah. And so the self-love I'm referring to is not feeding ego.
Right.
It's just compassion. In other words, if I feel good about myself as a parent would feel good about me in this moment, or a grandparent would feel good about me, just proud that I'm trying, proud that I'm here, proud that I'm focused, not proud as in I'm better than, but just, can you picture your grandfather watching you do this in this moment? Doesn't care if you win or lose. Just, glad that you've got some that you're investing yourself in, that you got out of bed. Yeah. To me, that's a distinction.
It's definitely an interesting balance between beating yourself up for not achieving based on your perception of what you want to achieve, and patting yourself on the back for something that you didn't do yet.
Right.
There is this back and forth to me in that. And like I said, in the end, it's a process of learning to, of self-development. I've watched it for many years. I mean, the times gone by with, what's been friends and family over the years, and seeing the young competitors become the older competitors, become the seasoned competitors, and watching the development, the personal development of myself, obviously, and then others, and seeing the young hot-headed guy, that just, blows up when they get a bad score or they do a bad run, and they're
kids
running around, typical young man kind of stuff, or the more experienced competitor that knows when they made a mistake, and not letting yourself get away with it and being like, yeah, whatever, I make mistakes, and it's okay to be a slacker, because you're there to challenge yourself, you're there to develop yourself, and whether it's about developing your mental focus, or developing your attention, or your ability to stay composed, or whatever part of yourself is the part that's in development during that process. It's about recognizing that that's the past.
Yeah.
It happened already. Whatever you did is now yours as part of your life story, your movie that you're writing as you go. I mean, we're each acting out our part in our own movie throughout our life, and we may do a great job of scripting it in our head, just like the visualization we talked about, but those visualizations don't always go the way that we've planned. Sometimes they go dramatically in another direction, and really it's just about owning and accepting the victory, or the lesson and the victory, lesson in the failure, whatever, which way it comes. It's about being there for the ride and knowing that that's the game. It's about the journey here.
Totally. Yeah. How do you keep the fire of drive present, where you really are trying your best, and you're not hating yourself for when you fail? Not so much that it's burning you, and it's just lifting you to continue focusing. Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? It's ongoing dialogue that's inside of every competitor. Anybody that's trying to do something with a lofty, sort of intention.
It goes to attachment either way. You go, here's what I did. I like it or I don't like it. I like it, put it in the bucket of victories. Woo! I don't like it, put it in the bucket of failures. And I got 2 buckets. Hopefully they're both full at the end.
Well, I mean, what if you were to tear off the label on failure and just call it knowledge of what is not the path?
Entirely. I mean, the experience is experience. Either way, you could label both buckets the same thing, experience.
Well, of course, non-dualistic is the higher perspective with everything, right? We call things good and bad, and so we live in hell half the time. If instead you say, this is all my soul journey, learning how to live, right? How to be.
Yeah.
How I prefer to be, right? Because I'm the only one that really ultimately gets to judge whether I'm a schmuck or not. That's up to me, So I'm going to keep trying to be the opposite of a schmuck as far as I can, as long as I can.
Hopefully more people have that attitude.
Yeah, no, you gotta sign on the dotted line yourself. I want to be a good person. I want to try like hell. And to me, that path has steered me away from things that are building me, and more being a channel through of wisdom that is not my own. That's why I started this show, because I realize there's people like you and lots of others that have deep wisdom, and I would like that wisdom to get out there.
I value the efforts that you make to guide and share knowledge and help be a provocateur.
Yeah, well, I suffer from a high level of give a shit.
Yeah. Son of a bitch sometimes.
Hey, it's an affliction at times. So there's another good question here that I like is if you're interested in multiple disciplines in skydiving, for instance, four-way, canopy piloting, etc., at what point do you realize which one is your true calling? That's a tricky one.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely a tricky one. I think that your true calling comes to you naturally, right? I mean, let me pose a question to you here, Brian, and see what you feel back, because as a wanderer, which is what I would classify myself as, you meander around, putting your finger in this pot, put your finger in that pot, and you're like, oh, do I like this? Do I like that? How does this make me feel? Am I gaining any value from this? Yeah. Do I feel engaged? Am I taking enjoyment from it? Am I seeing others getting enjoyment from it? Is it spreading something that I like, or am I just taking out of it? What are all the give and takes that are related to it, And when your interest starts waning on something, it's a sign, right? Like, what if you're not interested in it anymore? If it's not holding your attention and your passion, then it seems like it's a pastime more than it is a passion,
In its current framing, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how you can change something about the way that you're approaching that specific subject and enliven it. Suddenly it's new again. You jump out of airplanes for a while, okay, fine. And then somebody says, hey, have you tried sit flying? So there's always another thing that we can add. And the ultimate one for me continues to be service. It continues to be helping other people in every way that I can. And to me, that never runs out of gas. I never run out of my desire to help other people, because it's not about me.
Yeah, I agree. I think a big thing is, like, when you go to sleep at night, what's whirring around in your head? When you wake up in the morning, what's whirring around in your head? Are they responsibilities? Are they tasks that you have to take care of? Are you carrying a burden of some kind? Or is it some area of focus where you're like, that's what when your mind starts running off down a tangent about some particular thing of interest. And I mean, in this circumstance, it's, is it four-way, or is it free flying, or is it swooping, or who knows, is it to go, building a company, or making music, or chasing after that relationship, or, developing yourself, or whatever piece that is, where you find yourself waking up on that thought and going to bed on that thought. That seems to me how I make my decisions anyway. So what I let drive the bigger picture. I go, I can't get distracted from this. It's overbearing my greater being. It's obviously where my attention should be.
It keeps showing up. Yeah, it keeps showing up. And to me, this is not just it's not just a mundane mechanical thing in my life. This is something that is full of life. It's full of breath, chi. And it's coming at me from multiple places, all the things that I'm passionate about. And I guess that's a key word here, isn't it? Passion.
Yeah, agreed.
Right? And that feeling, to me, is what makes it valuable for me right now, whether it's parachute design or me coming up with a new way to, ground launch a parachute or something weird. It's not the activity that is meaningful to me. It's how I feel in the doing of it. And I think that's true of our life mission in general, that it's, some people are decidedly, I'm a healer, I'm going to cure cancer, or I'm going to go design a better nuclear reactor that doesn't, melt down like Chernobyl, or whatever your meaning is. It seems to me that it's in the feeling level of what you're doing and who you're being when you're doing it that's the part that you're falling in love with. That's the part that is the soul growth aspect.
Yeah. Huh. You know, I think one of the things when I was just listening to you there is kind of whirring around in the back of my mind was, even for people, you know, like I've considered myself to be quite obsessive, quite point focused, you know, to the point of, you know, thousands, tens of thousands of times repeating the same process over and over again. Obviously that's, you know, that's compulsive, that's obsessive. And at the same time, as much as that might be point focused on a particular area for an intense amount of time, there's 100 other things going on. You know, there's 10 other things that are happening in your day, or 100 other things that are happening over the course of the week. And, you know, even if your true calling or your passion, you might take up, you know, 80% of your day, even if I can't imagine it really taking up 8% of your day, but even if it did, if you're really focused on it, there's still another part of you that's happening somewhere. And we're never really ever completely locked into one thing. You know, I often find it quite comical to observe people's self-evaluation of commitment. You know, when they're like, oh, I'm committed to this 100%. And I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? They're like, well, you know, I want to meet this goal. I'm like, okay, well, this goal is how far away? A year from now? Oh, yeah, but it's about a year from now. Like, okay, and so you're 100% committed to this. How are you going to get from here to there between then? Well, I'm going to spend 3 days a month on it. And I'm like, is 3 days a month enough to get you from here to there? And then, well, yeah, because I'm 100% committed to it. I'm like, well, is 3 days a month added up over? Actually, that's only like 30 days. Is that enough time to really like span the distance of where we currently stand to what we're trying to achieve? And you're like, how about we see how much movement we make over 1 or 2 days and then measure that against the time coming up? And we often find ourselves after a couple very short period of time of observing that to go, whoa, really? I guess I need 300 days, not 30. And like 300 might be a good starting point if we're really trying to, you know, make some steps forward. But it's all about the first one, all right? Get that process started and keep it moving, and you know, not get too wrapped up in unrealistic measures and really go, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do now?
Yeah, it comes down to that, doesn't it? It's these repeated bringing forward into the now this intention that's lying there at all times, right? There's lots of intentions that we have that we kind of forget about in the moment.
Yeah.
To me, that's where the cooking is done.
Yeah.
I got lots of stuff in pots and pans ready to put on the stove, but unless it's on the hot stove of the here and now, it's dormant.
Yeah.
You know? And so we have to dedicate time to yoga practice, right? We have to dedicate time to these other intentions of drinking more water, right? It makes a difference and we know it, but the intention doesn't hydrate us.
Truth.
The water does.
Yeah. Hey, give me 1 second. I'm going to plug this laptop in before it gets too dead. All right.
Oh, right on. Jay Moledzki, realizing the here and now need of his computer.
Poof.
See? There it is sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think this is really, really good stuff. I mean, we could go ages just on this topic alone, but because this, getting back to this question, because it's an interesting one. He elaborated a little bit further and he said, well, is your quote true calling just about the one that you're currently good at, or is there something more? It's an interesting idea. Is your calling the thing that you are naturally good at? It's a good question.
Calling the thing that you're naturally good at. It's an interesting concept. I kind of want to turn the question back around and be like, do you know what your true calling is? Do I know what my true calling is? When I start like trying to frame up that definition, it's a pretty difficult concept to say. But first of all, I don't necessarily know I want to do that. I don't really want to put a box around my life, around my self-perception, around my self-definition, to say, this is who I am. It's based off of this right now, because you know how fast that changes?
Yeah.
From 1 second to the next. I mean, 1 minute you're thinking, yes, this is who I am, this is everything. And then the next minute you realize suddenly that doesn't have any value at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your true calling is a whole new thing. Yeah. Based on what needs to happen right now, and what's fulfilling you, and how are you ensuring that this is happening. Yeah, that's the barometer, right? Like, is this serving me now? And
I've seen a lot of people that were really, really talented skydivers. I mean, like natural born athletes in general, but specifically good at skydiving, and they burned out. They left the sport because, right? So was that their true calling? Maybe it was just they were approaching it with too much ego. Maybe they did too many jumps in a short period of time and they hurt their bodies and they had to stop. Maybe they, were missing a certain element of service and they weren't giving. I don't know, but they're gone from the sport. So maybe it is much more about happiness and love than it is about medals.
Yeah, I can tell you, I got a bucket full of them up there, and they don't have any value.
Yeah.
What really has value is the experience that you share with people, the change that you go through as a person. The development that we go through together. And how we learn to better perceive ourselves and life in general.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? We can just like cut through all the chafe and go, what is skydiving? What is base jumping? What is parachuting? What is all this? It's the ability to really get a better grip on now, on the value of now, right? I mean, that's the finite reality of free fall sports is you have a limited amount of time between now and the end of now. Where now ends, right? That's what changes everything. Like every other minute. Okay, so now I'm 44. If I do good, I'll get to like 75. I'll be above average, right? Maybe I'll get 80, 85. I don't know if I'll get that far. So maybe I have 30 years ahead of me. Maybe I don't, but I don't know. I could have died tomorrow. So I have no idea where now ends, right? But when you're jumping, you do.
Yeah.
You know exactly where now ends, right? We have this much time until the end of now. And so suddenly you value it immensely, and you don't let a second of it go to waste for anything. And you spend every second of it doing what? What do you spend every second of your time doing when you know what the end is? Having fun.
Yeah.
And being playful.
Yeah.
Challenging yourself, right? Being aware of that moment, being in that moment, just being hyper conscious of that second, valuing that second as if it's the last one that you might have, right?
Yeah. I wrote a book about that, I call it the state of green light, right? So the green light comes on in the airplane, and there is a sharpness to our awareness because we know that it matters, that every little detail matters, and we're going to start to be aware of things behind our heads. We're going to be aware of details, especially as our adrenaline level comes up and our joy level, comes down and the joy level comes up. We start to be hyper aware. The question I would ask is, how do we keep at least a certain level of that awareness all the time so that we're not turning off and lounging, because I do notice that not all skydivers have as a high experience when they're not jumping. And when it rains, you can see it. Right? They can't jump. They're miserable, and they sit around and they get too drunk or whatever it is, instead of realizing that you're just as in the now as you were in free fall.
Yeah.
How about that one?
I think it's a personal thing, more than anything. And to me, it comes from not being stuck in the idea that skydiving or parachuting or whatever is the end all be all of existence. That when you start valuing the moments with friends, the moments alone, the in-betweens, and when you're able to just be present and joyful or not.
Yeah.
To just to be present in pain. Maybe you're hurting on that moment, but that's what you're feeling.
Yes.
It's to be experienced, you know?
Yeah.
It's a gift. Either way, it's gonna end. And whatever you're feeling right now, whether it's positive or negative or neutral, meaning maybe it hurts really bad emotionally, maybe it hurts really bad physically, maybe you feel on top of the world right now, maybe you just don't know what you feel right now. At some point, that feeling is gonna come to an end. And you don't know when that's coming. Yeah. And in between now and then, you get to experience that. You get whatever it is, you're getting it. It's being given to you as a gift. It's driving forward your self-development. Whether you like it or not, you don't even get a choice whether you get to have that experience. You're given it. And what we do get a choice in is how to let it shape who we are, how to process it. I go, okay, I don't know if I like this or not, but I'm going to realize that I can be happy in who I am, whether I like it or not. I can be joyful and be grateful, express gratitude for having been given that opportunity for now.
That's a big word. It's a big concept, you know, appreciation and gratitude, to wake up into this moment, whether I'm, you know, beginning my dive into my high-speed approach where I'm just loving this so much, right? I mean, love, gratitude, that's all kind of the same emotion, where I'm completely invested in this moment. Seems to me that when I completely do that, I pour my full attention, invest myself in this moment, the returns appreciate. Right? Spin on words there, right? There's an appreciation to the value of my experience because I've chosen to fully invest my consciousness in it.
Absolutely.
And I think we can do that in every moment, and especially relationships, you know, including friendships, right? People are like, well, my relationship with my significant other is the most important one. They're all significant others.
The relationship with yourself is the most important one.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Who are you going to love if you can't love yourself first, right? Not effectively. I think that the love of skydiving, the love of hiking, the love of our relationships of these, appreciating the details of what we love and why we love it. To me, that's what turns on this experience of flowing life, you know, that makes it all worthwhile. Investment.
Yeah, it's just a pleasure to have the opportunity, you know. Yeah, there's so many great examples out there of how to, that have resonated with me throughout my life, you know, that helped shape me into who I am now, about learning to be the great gratitude and returning that, expressing that outward is really where true joy is coming from. And that the expression that happiness is a decision, happiness is a state of mind. And I really believe it comes from that state of gratitude, of being grateful for what we're given here and the opportunity to feel, period.
Yeah. Of course, most of the time we jumpstart the feeling when we're in moments where we have lost something or someone, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the feeling of suffering is just as intense as the feeling of joy. You know, both of them are massively powerful and both have so much to teach us and to give us. Great value in suffering.
Yep. Yeah. All change can lead to awareness, for sure. I mean, and it's one of the things that, because you've been in the sport for a while, you lose friends.
Many.
One way or another. It's inevitable. And it sucks. And at the same time, especially when it happens, when you lose somebody, you know, a beautiful figure like Gyro, right?
Sure.
And you go, wow, what could I have said to him if I knew he was going to, you know, just drop dead? Wow, there's a bunch of things I would have said to him, you know, appreciation thoughts, you know, to be that loving mirror of somebody and say, you know, I know that you're probably not allowing the full value of who you are because everybody's a little modest, but you're awesome, you know? And it jumpstarts my desire to say that to the people that are still in bodies.
Agreed.
You know? And, you know, guys like you that do have a high level of give a shit, you know, that you've been trying hard, not only to be a competitor, but to build a business around an idea of helping other people. You know?
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you for that, you know, for your high level of investment in trying to improve the sport, in trying to improve yourself, and the individuals around you. I think that's you need a thank you.
Very much.
You're getting one.
Yeah.
Right. So I think with that, we will wrap up for now, and hopefully we can have you on again sometime if you're up for it.
Be a pleasure.
Awesome. Right on. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. All of you, thank you for joining on the live feed, and we'll edit this video together and get it up on YouTube as soon as possible. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much for joining.
Great chatting with you.
In a silver car with a borrowed guitar, ready to travel so far.